He's uncomfortable with attention, so be gentle.
Please have Max Greenfield.
You're very worthy of introducing. Don't second guess yourself.
Really I can see half.
You'd be surprised. Most people revel in that.
Let me wait until she introduces me so I can walk up.
Come on, you have to pretend you're a real actor. Don't be shy. That's no place for that. I'm Stacey Wilson from The Hollywood Reporter. You guys have probably seen me before. Very pleased to be here with my good friend Max. Okay, we've only been around each other like 5 times, but I think of you as a friend. Yeah, we know each other. So before we get into New Girl specific stuff, I would love to know when and how did acting enter your life?
Do I have to use this, by the way, or can everybody hear me? Okay, I'll use it.
We're recording
that's
this
all
for
we were
posterity.
looking for. Thank you for your honesty. How did acting come in?
Yes, how did... And tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how this came into your life.
I grew up in New York. I grew up outside of the city in a county called Westchester. And it was a small town. I went to a public school. And I felt like acting was something that I always thought was always kind of a dream job, it felt like. But I didn't know any actors. The actors that I saw on TV or in movies seemed very far away, and it didn't seem realistic as a profession.
What did your family do? What did your parents do?
My mother and father were in the record industry, which no longer exists.
Right. That's a very antiquated term, record.
There was a time, though.
I remember that time. It's very special.
So, like, they used to take me to... My mom, like... was in A&R and worked on Turnstiles, the Billy Joel album.
Wow.
Was at the ranch during the recording of that.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure they had some intimate moments.
Oh my God, we're starting rumors tonight too. Awesome.
I don't know that for sure, but I got a feeling.
This is before she met your dad, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom's a pretty good-looking lady, and I think, she was young, and she was on the ranch, and there was Billy, and I have a hard time believing that nothing happened.
He does have very deep, soulful blue eyes. They're very intriguing.
Look, it's Billy Joel. He starts playing some of the tracks off of Turnstiles, and who could blame you?
Nobody.
And then my father was in finance, and he dealt with like all the the financial stuff that goes into
numbers and money.
Yeah, it was
like
so
that.
funny.
Okay.
He just was the antithesis of like creative in that process. He just was like
in New York. He worked in the city.
Yeah, he worked in the city. Okay. So that was that.
So you weren't living with any actors or people who you had a point of reference
there was no. I mean, it was odd. You would think that like kind of growing up in the record industry that maybe the film and television industry would be like a close next door, and it just never felt like a reality.
Right.
And probably because my mother had retired soon after I was born, and then my dad was so non-creative in the business that the artist felt very far away. So it was always something that I kind of thought about, and maybe had like a wish of some sort to do, but never thought of it as a realistic possibility.
Was there something you saw or watched as a kid that sparked that for you?
Well, my parents showed me movies when I was younger that I should not have seen at the period of my life I was in. I remember them. They pushed Annie Hall and other Woody Allen movies on me so early. Because they had we had VHSs, and I remember we had like a drawer full of VHS tapes. So I would want to see a movie, and they'd be like, well, Zelig is a great film.
Which is thrilling to a 7-year-old kid, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was literally like 10 or 11, and I remember them like really being excited about Annie Hall and showing me Annie Hall. I must have been 12, 13 years old, and I was like, I fully don't get this movie. I don't understand it. I don't find it funny. I don't know why I'm watching this. But they made, like, that was the extent of our VHS collection, was like every Woody Allen movie there ever was. That and like Goonies. And I was like, Goonies is the greatest movie ever.
Yeah. Agreed.
It wasn't until much later that I come to really appreciate the Woody Allen movies, and I'm like, oh, they were so right.
That's right. And did you start to do school productions, and how did you vocalize
I grew up in a town where, like, doing a school production was not cool, and like really not cool. And we were in, I graduated, I think, with like 82 kids, and it just was not, like, there wasn't like the theater group, because the extent of our entire school was small.
Right.
So if there was one theater kid, Jimmy Hickey.
I'm sure he
remember,
didn't
like,
make fun
he
of it
was
all.
the lead in every play that was ever done at our school, and you were like, and like Jimmy wasn't the coolest guy, and he certainly wasn't a girl, and I was like, I'm not doing that.
How did you spend your time otherwise?
There was one production of The Outsiders that they did at our school, and the majority, and I was not really, it was odd. I was so pissed because we auditioned for it, and like the idea was, because there was like a bunch of like cool guys auditioning for it, and
it's a cool
yeah,
show.
It was like like there was, but the only reason I found out later, the only reason they were auditioning for it, was because they all wanted to be in the Rumble scene, and they felt like they wanted to beat the shit out of each other on stage. I swear that this is true.
That makes sense.
And I was like, oh, okay, I want to be a part of that too. That sounds like fun. And then I got cast as like the one Soch who's not a part of the Rumble scene.
It's your hair. It's totally your hair.
But I do remember really enjoying those productions, like secretly, kind of on stage, being like, this is kind of great.
See, so you kept your preferences to yourself for a while. You didn't make them public.
Totally, until my father had gotten a job in the at Warner Brothers Records out here. So like our whole family had moved out my senior year of high school, and
That must have been traumatic. Senior year of high school.
I was an idiot. I was like, I can remember, like, we grew up in Westchester County. We grew up in a town called Dobbs Ferry, and Dobbs Ferry is right on the Hudson River. This is sad that I'm telling this story, but I can remember, like, around that period of time, and I kind of knew we were moving to Los Angeles, and I remember, like, looking out over the Hudson and being like, I gotta get out of this town. There's bigger and better things out there for me.
That's very outsidery of you too, by the way.
Totally. But I remember then getting out to LA, and acting was like so much. It just was so present and much more realistic, and that's when I started taking classes at Santa Monica Community College, and then started like not going to those classes and just going to movies, and got into an acting class and was like, forget it.
What about it didn't appeal to you, the acting classes?
No, the acting classes I continued. Santa Monica Community College I did not. I was taking taking normal classes there.
Oh, I see.
And it was I just realized college is not for me.
Okay.
Whatever they're offering to me there was not anything that I wanted to do. I was like, I enjoy this acting. I suppose you could do it at one of those colleges, but then they make you take all these other courses too that I wanted nothing to do with.
You're talking to a lot of people, I'm sure,
like core curriculum. I remember, I'm skipping a year that I did at the University of Wisconsin, which I failed out of miserably. And I remember I was trying to be an art major at the time there, and I would like have two classes that I really liked, which were art classes where we'd go and like paint and draw, and it was wonderful. But then it'd be like, you also need to go to this Scandinavian literature class. Couldn't understand why.
They wanted to make you well-rounded, is what they were trying to do.
I think they were trying to steal my money, and I was not into it.
Yeah, that sounds like college.
So I left.
And when did you get serious about auditioning here? At what point?
When I wanted to be serious about it when I first got out here, or when I first started. Gosh, what happened? It's such a different, it's like changed so much, I feel like. And I guess maybe at the same time
You mean the business and auditioning and stuff?
Yeah. For me, what happened was I was in an acting class, and the class offered, they put on like a showcase, and we did scenes. And I think I don't remember like what showcase it was or what scene I had done from whatever showcase, but I had met a manager through that, and then eventually an agent, and they started sending me out on auditions. And it went horribly wrong. It was just horrible.
Auditions for mostly TV stuff?
Yeah,
okay.
a lot of TV stuff, like a lot of, it's interesting when you start off and you're like, I guess I was about 19, you're not really competing against any name actors because there's not a lot of name actors at 19, and there's like a lot of like high school TV shows.
Right.
So you'd go in and you would audition for these TV shows, and I remember I had an audition for the OC at one point to play.
What you got? You landed on the show.
Yeah, eventually, but I remember auditioning for Adam Brody's role, and I was a terrible actor at that point because I was so eager to work that I hadn't really learned how to act yet, and I had no clue what I was doing, and I would go into these rooms and I would fucking bomb.
In what way specifically did they give you feedback to let you know
what
you did wrong?
Like that was terrible.
Or
you would just be, but by the way, like you'd be in there and you knew it was going wrong.
Right.
You just were like, man, this is going south. I made some wrong choices with this material.
And how soon into the material do you know?
Immediately.
And did the casting people, aside from them, I really doubt that they told you were terrible, but did they?
There was one that did, for
really?
real, wrote a horrible email, not nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he or she suggest that you stop trying to do this?
Yes.
Really?
It was a casting director in New York. I auditioned for a theater play, and he was rough.
What did he say?
He was probably right, but he made some real bold statements that dealt with my future as an actor that I didn't agree with. But maybe in the moment, he was not wrong.
Well, what did you do with, obviously those moments of rejection are never fun, but did they help to fuel your motivation, and did you seek help from a coach at that point?
I had many coaches over a long period of time. Each one I love for different reasons. I never found a coach that I was like, oh, I'm going to stick with you through thick and thin. I met a lot of coaches that I was like, I like what you have to say there. I'm taking that. I'm spending a little bit more time with you. You haven't given me any more than just that thing. Now I'm going to go. And then I found another coach, and he would give me another thing, and I'd go, and I would have the same experience over and over again.
Was that because you were trying to do comedy mostly?
No, the funny thing is when I started out, I thought I was going to be like Gary Oldman.
I don't think we're laughing because we can't see you as Gary Oldman.
No, I think you are. and you should be.
It's just
here's what happens.
It's a different you.
It's a very, I came up and I would be watching all those movies, and I loved watching. I still love watching movies, but you come up and everything you watch is like these great movies from the 70s with Pacino, and De Niro, and these amazing guys. There's a ton of amazing women too, but for me, I would be watching those guys, and you're like, oh man, I just want to get in there and do that. Yeah. And And when you're in an acting class, you're allowed to go do those type of scenes and take material from different plays and infuse a lot of that into it and like kind of get excited. And then you go on an audition and it's like, say this one line about the BLT for a fucking commercial.
And you're like, that was not in Serpico.
And you're like, but no, when you're young, you're like, I mean, what am I thinking about when I'm taking a bite of this BLT? And you put all that thought into it.
Right.
And probably too much thought, really.
Well, and Pacino and De Niro, they came up in a totally different time. And they stayed in New York. They weren't trying to make it out here. And I think maybe, they weren't auditioning for TV shows right away, or ever, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think going back to the Gary Oldman bit and the Pacino De Niro thing is like, truthfully, at that age, when you're that young, and when I was that young, I did not know who I was. I didn't know who I was as a human being, and until I kind of came to grips with who I was and what I was able to kind of bring to a role or as an actor in general, is when I really started doing good work. And when I stopped like watching a Gary Oldman movie and been like, I said, I like this audition for the OC. I'm going to do my best Gary Oldman in the room. Do you know what I mean? Or like, you get like the bad, I like this material for the bad boy on Dawson's Creek. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do Penn. And it's like, it's right. Terrible. And then you end up doing terrible acting in there. And that's when you realize immediately that you made the wrong choice. You know what the wrong choice was? To pretend to be Sean Penn in a room.
I interviewed Michael Pitt a few years ago, and I was quick to bring up Dawson's Creek, which he was on. That I was obsessed with the idea that he was on Dawson's Creek. Yeah. But talk about a guy, I mean, he's almost like a 70s type actor in 2014. And being on a network show, I mean, you learn the rigor of the business. I mean, that's probably the most, even it may not be the part you're dying to play. You're learning literally just, it's like training to be an athlete. It's sort of like, that has to be invaluable.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's incredible. I mean, there's a big difference between like, when you go to do a movie, you know that you're shooting for like 30 days. You have a script, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. And you can make choices within that affect all those three things. When you're doing a TV show, you show up every day, and you're like, what are we doing today? And a lot of the times, you learn that morning. So you get quick on your feet, and, some days go well, and some days don't, and some days you make good choices, and some days you make bad choices, but, like, what's nice about being on the TV show is that if you stay engaged, you learn and you try new things. And like, I can watch episodes of New Girl where I'm like, I was trying something out there. It fully did not work. And that's good to know.
Right. And you only know that by watching the show, by the way. If you didn't watch yourself, a lot of people say, oh, I don't watch myself, but
yeah, totally. Or like when you're just in the moment and you're doing it and you're like, yeah.
Or somebody tells you, you just stick to the way it's written.
Yeah, that's what becomes interesting about it.
So on the subject of New Girl, tell us how that part came to you.
It was such a crazy thing because I had, as a lot of actors know, the TV process and what the auditioning process for a television show is everybody knows about like testing for the show and all that nonsense. I had tested for so many different shows previous to New Girl. I felt like there was a 3-year period where I was, especially comedically, was doing really good work. And I knew it in the room, and I knew I was immediately realizing that I was making the right choices as opposed to the wrong choices. And I felt confident, and I felt great, and I was getting really close on every show that I went in on. And I cannot tell you how many times, like, I would test for a show and and it would be like the frustrating ones were these, and this happened to me. I'm telling you, many times, where I would come in an audition, and the producers would go, "Well, we literally don't want to see anyone else. This is the guy," and I'd be like, "Well, great. I guess that means I got it." And they would then take me to the studio, and usually the studio would get on board, and they'd go, "All right, we want to support our producers and support our writers, and like, here we go. Let's take this choice into the network." And sometimes it happened on Happy Endings, where like I would be taken to network as the sole choice, where you have the producers and the writers and everybody on board, the studio, saying, "We believe in this guy so much that we're not even having him go against anybody. Here's the guy." And you're sitting there like going, "Hey." "Hey, everyone." And you're literally not in a room unlike this, like, except for your section is usually dark. And you're like, "Hey, man. You guys out there? Okay, I guess should we start with scene 2? And then you give the same audition that you gave the previous several times, and someone at the network goes, "I don't like that you're making us choose this one guy."
They like to have choices.
Yeah. Right. And they go, "Well, why don't you keep looking and bring us something like that we can audition him against?" And you're like, "But," and then you're sitting there going, "But why? But I thought I was the guy. But I've been working so hard, I don't understand." And I can count on both hands how many times that happened to me. And I would love to say that I handled it with grace and dignity. I did not. My wife can attest to this. And some of those instances were like, me on the phone with my manager just being like, somebody who just lost on The Bachelorette being like, "But why? But what? But I don't understand why." And then, on the other side of it, the producers, more times than not, would then continue to fight for you and be like, "Hey, it's not over." And they would keep you on this hook. And you would think in the back of your head, like, "I think this is going to work out." They keep on fighting. I think they wrote the show. You would think that they would be able to get the guy that they wanted. And you would, for months be on hold for some show that you thought maybe you might get. And it literally happened over and over and over again. And the amount of stress and the amount of time spent on these shows that didn't ultimately work out was monumental. And the reason why I take you through that is because when New Girl happened, and there was the Zooey Deschanel show directed by Jake Kasdan and the hot writer Liz Merriweather and all these great, powerful parts who were coming together, and you thought to yourself, "Man, I wonder which name they're going to cast in this role." You go in, you don't give a shit because you don't think you're going to get the role anyway. You go, "I like the material because it's good and I can nail this." And then you go in, you do it, and then 4 days later, you're on the show.
Wow.
And then there was never a moment of fight or angst. Or I can tell you, I walked out of the first audition for that, and I don't know that I've ever given a better audition. And I walked out of there, and I went, "Oh, God damn it." I was on the phone with my wife, and I was like, I remember where I was walking. I was on the Fox lot, and I was on the phone with my wife, and I was like, "Fuck." She's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "I did awesome." And she was like,
"Can I just interject? His wife is the head of casting at Fox, so this is
at the time she was not.
So she knows the struggles.
At the time she was not. She was just she was in a weird situation over there.
Yeah, that was a little bit after.
I was like, man, I did really well. And she goes, well, that's great, don't you think? And I go, no, it's not, because you know what's going to happen. And I was just at that place where I was like, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I was going to get dragged through the mud, and I was going to get, like, to the very end of this thing, and the producers were going to be like, this is the guy, and that someone at the network was going to be like, but wait a minute. And sure enough, by the way, at the very last minute, and this is the shit that happens, like, I knew the two other guys that I was auditioning against, and I was like, I kind of think I got these other guys. And not that it's a competition, but I just felt like how the show was shaping up, I was like, I think I'm in a good place here. And at the very last second, TJ Miller got thrown into the mix.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, TJ is a fucking powerhouse. And
he'd also been through the ringer too, by the way.
Totally.
Like, bunch of failed shows.
Totally.
Yeah.
But at that point, he had a much bigger name than me. He is a big, big comedy figure. And I was like, here we go. I'm done. Luckily, he was wrong enough for the role that they were like, I don't think TJ's fully right. And they cast me. But like that was the one little hiccup in the middle of there. But really, it just happened so seamlessly. And the reason I say that is because, like, you come out of these things, like, I can better tell you why I got New Girl than why I did not get any of the previous other jobs. And you then look at it and you go, man, this ended up being a better job than all of those other ones. And not only that, I was more, like, if you read Liz submitted like a pitch sheet when she was pitching the show, and the character breakdown for Schmidt, well, sadly enough, was very accurately close to me as a human being. And I was just that right for it. And like I think these jobs are specific ones are genuinely made for certain people to do.
Right.
And you know, there was jobs that I auditioned for that I thought I should have gotten, that I still think I should have gotten. But there was a lot of other ones that I was like, I bullshitted a good enough audition to fake them all out and make them believe up until the last point where they were like, wait a minute, we cannot cast him as like some waspy Midwestern guy. He's a full-on Jew from New York. He's so wrong for this. What do we think? We think this is a mistake.
But you're just such a good actor that you could have played a wasp.
Well, you gotta bullshit these people.
That said, you don't want to do such a good job bullshitting in the moment that it's like they want you to feel the part. They want you to feel it for the long term and not just that you're performing in the room. They want you to embody
No,
the
they
person.
cast a lot of people who perform in the room. And then you watch the show and you go, that guy's wrong. Or that show doesn't get picked up because they look at the pilot and they go, man, we fucked up. We cast the wrong people.
Did it help? Because Liz had such a kind of throw in the Lion's Den experience making the show. She'd never run a show. Did it help having her also be sort of a newbie? Did she bring kind of a sort of untainted sensibility about who she wanted because she was so new to all of this?
No, I mean, I've been in situations where people were very similar. I think she really responded. I gave a very good audition, and I think she responded to that. And I had the support of a lot of people. One of the casting director, Seth Yankovic, I had auditioned for him a lot in the past. He, for years, had tried to get me a job, as had many casting directors. And I think he more than anyone really fought for me in that room. And when a casting director like really steps up and fights for you in that producer session in that room and stands up and is like, I mean, I don't know what anybody else was watching, but that's the guy. And then starts a conversation about that. It's invaluable, especially when you have a younger show creator who's like, yeah, I really liked him. And then when you have someone like Seth, who's so seasoned, turns around and goes, I know you really liked him. That's also the guy that you need to cast in the role.
Right. And she needed the confidence of someone like him.
That's
who's
right.
Been sitting through hundreds and thousands.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why, like, I love casting directors and find them to be as important to the process as anybody.
They often have the best instincts.
They have the best instincts, and they I don't know for the most part, but a lot of them, so many of them, love actors, and they're doing it because they love actors. And if you find casting directors that are generous enough to take the time with you and to kind of work with you and support you, you know, it's just the best. Because, like, I can remember there's many casting directors that still have not hired me, but yet I've read for over and over and over again, and they're like, you know, and it's so funny when then something like New Girl happens, those are the people who run up to you and are like, I told you. Like, because I'm telling you, you don't believe in yourself as much as the casting directors believe in you. There was many of them, and I was like, I'd be like, oh, who's casting this? I'd be like, they really want to see me again?
So they were rooting for you all along.
Yeah, I'd bombed in some of their rooms. Good.
It also helps, too, you had a relationship with Fox. They probably wanted the best for you. They wanted you to land in the best project. So there was a permanence with your presence, you know, in these auditions over the years.
No, I bombed at the testing level, too.
Really?
Yeah, and that's a real scary thing. Because you go in, the year before, I had gone in for a show. I forget what the name of it was. It didn't end up going, but I was so scared testing for New Girl at the studio level because the year before I had read in that room live, and the fucking director gave me a note right before I walked into the room, and like an idiot, I listened to him, and I then tried to like shift the entire audition around this one note that this guy had given me, and it just went so far off track, and it did not go any further after that point. And I remember like the feedback was, wow, he's a real asshole. And wow. I remember like, oh no, I mean I can see how you would think that, but I also was kind of told to play like that. But I mean that's the whole thing. And that was a real bummer. So then when we went back in to test for New Girl, that was the next time I was in that room. And, you know, when you are rejected the last time that you were in a room, you think, well, probably going to get rejected again. They're just used to doing it. Right. So that was kind of, you're then fighting against that last feeling they had about you.
Right. Well, it worked out, ultimately.
Yes.
And early on, Schmidt emerged for a lot of people. Even though the show's a comedy, it's still single camera. There's a lot of dramatic moments. You were consistently the funniest in terms of the plot and the narrative. And how hard was it to then reinvent him for season 2 and then season 3 and make him continually fresh? Because I think his character carries a lot of the funny moments.
Well, you know, I think in season 2 and season 3, it's more up to the writers than it is for me.
Right.
I just show up and try to do my best every day, and try to make what I'm given interesting. But season 1 was, you know, I mean, look, it's nice to say that he was the funniest one, but he was set up to be the funniest one. Very early on, they had established, even if it didn't fully, they did something. We shot the first 2 episodes of the first season after the pilot, so episodes 2 and 3 together. So we were shooting they just cross-bordered it where we would shoot like a couple scenes from episode 3 and then a couple scenes from episode 2, and then it was just mixed into those first 2 weeks. In episode 3, there was a storyline between Nick and Jess where the two of them were already starting to really kind of connect and become a thing. Now it ultimately got cut out because somebody was like, "Whoa, way too fast. We can't do that. It was too soon." But it was established to the actors that this is clearly the direction of this show. These are your two main love interests who are going to have to be, if you believe them as a human couple, grounded. Right. And I was of the belief that if we play this thing like real straight and on the ground, that will be a very well-received show, but we will probably get canceled after 4 episodes. So that when they came to my stuff and it looked like they were leaning on me for some of the more comedic moments, I was like, I'm going to have to go for this. And plus at that point, after having tested and all that other nonsense and the journey up until that point, I mean, when it was season 1, after the pilot, I was nervous. I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And then, we had Damon too, so it was a much different dynamic. And they didn't want to make that second episode about like, okay, well, the first episode was about a girl moving in, and then the second episode's going to be about a new guy moving in because we lost him and Wayne's happy endings, and now here's Lamorne Morris. Right. So they really were like, we'll build Lamorne throughout season 1. We don't want to make that like the focal point of the second episode. So the show was really like, it started off as Jake and Zoe's characters, my character, and then we'll figure out Lamorne's character. So I felt like, all right, here we go. I don't give a fuck. Let's go. Like, let's do this. Whatever you tell me to do, I'm going full out. I mean, there's like literally, there's like scenes where I'm running up a wall, and I'm like, I'll run up the wall. I'll take my shirt. Like, what I'll do, I will get fully. There were scenes where I was fully naked running around the New Girl set, and you're like, this is a network television show. I don't know why I have to be full, but let's do it. I don't care. And it was just, it was all out every minute of every day.
And it worked.
It worked. Just so grateful to be there. So excited to be doing this. The first season was unbelievable. We had like the greatest directors on the planet. Like every great comedy director came and did our show, which was incredible. Like John Hamburg, David Wain, who I now have done like a bunch of stuff with.
Jesse Peretz.
Jesse Peretz, he came in and Jesse Peretz is, if you ever get a chance to work with Jesse Peretz, you're the luckiest human being alive. He's the greatest director in the history of the planet. I probably was pissed off a bunch of other people. But like Kasdan did a bunch of it was ridiculous. Like the learning experience and everything, it was just like it was such a dream come true. It was on another level.
We could feel your exuberance coming through the screen. It was it can be silly at times, but it feels like you can feel your joy, that you're really enjoying it.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of actors, you can necessarily sense that on TV, but it was fun. It was just, TV needs more fun characters.
Yeah, I mean, look, we work a lot of hours. There are some scenes where I'm really pushing for that exuberance, but for the most part, it's always there. I mean, it's fucking fun, man. We are on a fun show.
It looks very fun, and there are a couple of great questions from the audience that would work well as a segue, which is something I was going to ask anyway. Amy Castle would like to know, how much improv do you guys do? I've heard that it's quite a bit.
Yeah, we do a lot. How much? Here's the thing about improv. Here's the thing. I like to improv. It's fun. I think it's also really dangerous. You rely on it, and then the next thing you know, you're like, well, I guess I don't have to learn my lines tonight because we'll just prov through this thing. Which is a really terrible attitude to have. Like, we improv, here, I'll give you a great example. So David Wain came to do our show. And because we do improv a lot on our show, and because like we'll have scenes that'll just be like fully opened up, and David shoots pretty fast. We had specifically like 2 or 3 scenes that were really improv heavy, and I remember, I guess this is how Wayne does it, and or I guess he's like cool with it, you know what I mean? It just felt like we did a lot that episode. So he then, after that first season, hired me to play a role in his movie that we then shot over the summer, which comes out like in 2 weeks. They came together. It's going to be great.
Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler.
And I played Paul's brother, and the first scene we did was this like jogging scene. And I was like, I literally showed up. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do with the role, but I showed up thinking, oh, it's a David Wain movie. We'll show up, we'll probably improv a bunch and like fuck around, and it'll be funny. And we're shooting the first scene, and I maybe threw in like a little. It wasn't even a joke. It was just kind of like I rearranged something that one of the lines, and Michael Showalter, who wrote it, who I love, is a dear friend of mine, who I'm working with in about a month. Michael comes running over to me and is like, no. No. That line's like that. You're supposed to say that's so. And I was like, oh shit. And I nearly like had a full panic attack because I was not used to being word perfect. And when you get in the habit of improving a lot, right, and then you're asked to be word perfect, it is a big adjust. And I've watched people just die in that situation. So it's not something you want to get comfortable with, which we do on our show, which I find sometimes to be really dangerous. But I will say the best improv is when a scene is well written. If you have a well-written scene, you then can find the little pieces and like it's, oh man, I was just going to talk like a real actor. I was gonna say something about like, you know, like some cooking metaphor and like adding like, fuck, I can't do that. But it is like when you have a well-written scene that makes sense and that emotionally makes sense and that like from point A to point B to like where you're going in the scene works, then natural moments come up. And if you feel the urge to then say something in that moment that you feel like adds something to what's happening, that's the best improv. That's the greatest improv ever. I don't enjoy the improv that's just like, hey man, just open it up and see what happens. I don't even know what we're doing. Why would you ask me to do that?
But in your defense, David and Michael and all those guys like started The State. They made Wet Hot American Summer. I mean, these are not guys making like Shakespeare movies.
No, but but the movie we did was very specific, and there were moments where like they let Paul and Amy go, but they specifically were like, "You're new here. You say the words."
That's when you say, "Fair enough, boss." Wendy Lane, I hope that's the last name. She would like to know, and I think I would like to know too, how the hell do you guys get through scenes without laughing all day? We don't.
I laugh so much. It's such a joke.
I mean, is there some sort of method that you use?
No.
No?
I mean, like I know, I know what Jake is going to do in most scenarios, although he will do something every once in a while that like, I go, oh man, he's in a real mood today, and I'll just start laughing. And Lamorne is the same way. Damon's nuts.
Damon's back now.
Damon's back. So he will like go off on a run, and you're like, and then you will start dying laughing. The worst I ever had it though was Rob Riggle came on the show.
Oh yeah.
Don't work with that guy. He's
dangerous.
He's very professional. He's a lovely human being. He is the funniest actor I've ever worked with. I could not, but I got yelled at.
By who?
And not by Riggle. Riggle was like loving it. By like the producers and like, you know, you're on a set and you're like there for hours and like, you know, the crew's like, hey Max, pull it together. And I remember like my whole job that week was like, just don't laugh. Because it was so bad and so uncontrollable. And I started like dreading scenes. I was like, I get it, he's funny. I can't do these scenes because he had a way, like every time I thought he wasn't going to say something like infantile, but with like such determination.
He learned that in the military. He's a military guy.
Yes.
So he has amazing fortitude.
He would just turn scenes around in a way where like you would think, oh, he's fully going down, and this is all improv. Like he would go down a route, and he was like describing some plate of food at some point. He was like, "Look at my food," and he was saying, and he was like, you know, it's classy, it's beautiful, and he was like using all these like beautiful, like elegant words to describe his food, and I was like, oh, okay, he's like going on a run, and I was there with him. And I mean, he was really going for it. And he goes, it's like a big succulent vagina. And like, I just didn't see it coming. And this was on day 4.5, maybe 5 of the week, and where I had been yelled at, and I lost it. And I remember just putting down, I was like holding a fork and a knife, I put it down on the table, and I just looked at the crew, and I was just like, I mean, what am I supposed to do, you guys? I was like, I quit. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm embarrassing myself.
You're only human, after all. We have time for only one more question, and it's from Chris. And he would like to know what dream roles do you have in your head for either the rest of New Girls Run or after the show's over?
I don't know. I just hope to find stuff that's. Like great.
That's not asking too much. No.
It's true. It
and
really
with Gary
is.
Oldman, obviously acting opposite Gary Oldman.
It's really true. You know, I'm lucky enough to be on a television show with phenomenal actors, namely Zoe, who's like a genuine movie star, who is one of the most talented actresses I've ever worked with. And great writing. I'm spoiled. So that when, you know, you'll like get your summer, and I also have a family that I don't want to leave, and you'll get a script and you'll go, this is terrible.
You mean like hiatus stuff?
But it's an interesting thing that happens, because when I was out of work, had you given me any script, I would have been like, oh man, I got a big audition tomorrow. And now that I'm like,
well, you can be choosy now.
But it's not choosy. It's like realistic. I would look at something and go, not right for this, and it sucks. No thanks. When before I probably would have been like, man, like exactly what I said. I got a big audition for it that I'm wrong for, and that is going to suck terribly. Right. And you go, well, what's the difference? And you just go, the difference is the desperation to work as an actor, or to like be, I guess like there's a part of it that's just like being accepted, and like, you know, them saying yes. Right. Is gone.
Well, you're in the club. You're a member of the club, and you can be.
It's not so much desperate. A member of the club. Like I don't think that really exists.
It exists for some people, I think.
Maybe if you're like Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, but you know what? He made a lot of stinker movies too. I mean,
but he's also like now doing American Sniper, which is like a script that went around, and it's Clint Eastwood, and I'm like. And my agents were like, hey, man, do you want to read American Sniper? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I want to read it. Am I going to be in American Sniper? No.
There
So
need to
like,
be more
why
Jewish
don't
snipers
I'm
in movies.
I'm telling you, I had like a full on. You go to like these weirdo agency meetings, and they're like, let me tell you what's going on this summer. These are the movies, and they brought up American Sniper, and there was like 2 other movies that were they're like the Aaron Sorkin Steve Jobs, but like it's all like crazy. I'm like, they're like, so we've got this movie, and it's American Sniper, and it's Clint Eastwood, and it's really and it's an exciting script, and I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to see it when it comes out. I'm fucking Schmidt on New Girl. Like, there needs to be... You need to put yourself in check as a human being. It's no different from when I was a young man and I was auditioning thinking I was Gary Oldman. I went in to audition for the Adam Brody role with the idea that I was auditioning for Serpico. I didn't know who I was. I know who I am now, and like, you know, I'm doing a movie with Michael Showalter, who also wrote They Came Together, next month, and you know, I'm doing it because Michael and I met on that first movie. He called me about this one, and I read it, and I was like, I love this more than anything else in the world. I'll do this. I mean, at this point, there's no. By the way, there's no money in movies, so you're like, I'm doing this for free because I love this material,
and you love the people.
I love it, of course,
right?
But you know, you do it because I love this. I want to be a part of this. I want to act in these scenes. I feel like I can add something to this story. And that, I think, is like, if you have that feeling towards something, that's the reason you should do it. And it wasn't until I got New Girl that I started to realize that. And I didn't realize how right I was for New Girl. Like, I didn't realize that I had something to add to the story of New Girl. I thought I was just like, got a big audition tomorrow.
That should be the name of your book, by the way. You got a big audition tomorrow.
By the way, that is probably right.
Honestly, everything you've described tonight is not only helpful to people, but also very enlightening. I mean, maybe more so than anything you can learn in an acting class. I'm not an actor, but I speak to actors all the time, and what you've shared is super, super helpful.
Well, look, we're all actors here, right? I love actors. Like, I genuinely love actors. You guys, we are the best. Some of us are very weird, and then you come to realize, like, you're also the weirdest. But, like, I love actors, and I love what we do, and, you know, there's so much bullshit that you have to deal with that it clouds, like, every once in a while when you get on set and, like, Merritt Weaver shows up and you're, like, doing scenes with Merritt and you're like, oh, man, I forgot I was on the TV show for a second.
Right.
We were just fully, like, doing some great scenes and doing some great work and connecting as, like, 2 actors, and that was awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah. And then you go, oh, yeah, I remember. Right. That's cool.
Well, thank you very much for being here. You're very inspiring.
Thanks.